Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It is 6:33, it looks like, and I'm calling the October meeting of Bronx Community Board 8 to order. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Laura Spalter. I'm chair of the board. We begin tonight with our budget for 2023 public hearing for the expense and capital budget. And at this juncture, I want to introduce David Gelman, our budget chair, and he will take it from here. David.
Thank you, Laura. Actually, the meeting I don't believe the meeting itself doesn't start till 7. This is the budget hearing for fiscal year 2023. Just as a quick reminder, now in October, we are about 1/3 of the way through fiscal year 2022, which ends June 30th of next year. Over the past winter and spring, each of the committees have met with their members as well as other members of the community to surface ideas for budget priorities for us to submit to the city, the Office of Management and Budget, in the capital category as well as expense category. We came up with a preliminary list in the spring, and in May created a first pass of the priority order across the community, considering demographics and geography and timeliness, et cetera, et cetera. In the last several weeks, we have had meetings with representatives of city agencies who told us where they stood on a couple of these priorities and their ability to address them. And then the executive committee last week refined the priorities for the budget items, which were posted on our website. And as I understand it, were also distributed individually to people for them to see our priorities. So the purpose of this hearing is to give members of the community an opportunity to give their opinions on the priorities, these capital expense budget priorities relative to what they believe are the needs within the community. And so we have a couple of folks who had signed up to do so. As I recall, Tony was the first one we had listed, but I don't see him at the moment. So next on our list will be Stephanie Ehrlich. I will remind everybody that the purpose of these comments are to be directed at the existing budget priorities for fiscal year 2023. Any new ideas that you'd like to bring up more generally, I'd recommend that you meet with the individual committees for the following year's budget priorities. Oh, good. Thank you, Kira, for putting up, let's see, the capital request. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And as I recall, after Tony on the list was Stephanie Ehrlich and Christina Taylor. Stephanie, are you ready?
I am. And I'm flying solo tonight. Okay. Good evening, everybody. And thank you for this opportunity. As many of you know, Van Cortlandt Park has both been one of the most popular destinations in the Bronx during COVID times. So we are asking for expense funding for more PEP, Park Enforcement Patrol, dedicated PEP for Van Cortlandt Park, and more maintenance and operations staff to keep the park clean, green, and beautiful. That also includes horticulture staff. So our maintenance and operations staff is very, very important. In expense funding, I believe that we also put in for 2 gators. They are those small vehicles that allow staff to drive around the park safely. And we need soccer goals to be replaced. We need about 6 pair of soccer goals. We have equipment that needs to be purchased, and one of them, very importantly, is a small garbage truck known as a mini packer. We need that, a hybrid vehicle. We also need to have 2 crew cab pickups. We lost some vehicles in Hurricane Ida during the remnant. They were submerged behind the swimming pool. So we lost 3 vehicles actually. So we'd like to replace those. Another one is a skid steer. And if at all possible, a large packer. We'd also take 2 mini packers instead of 1 large and 1 small. And then we have some capital projects that we have been talking about for a while. The stadium located at Broadway really needs some attention. But before we can do anything, I think a new study needs to be done to assess its viability. It also sustained a lot of water damage during Hurricane Ida and is really in bad shape. And there is the potential that there's a very bad mold problem in there. Our Enslaved People project continues. And one of the things that we would love to fund is a sacred space and memorial within the park, interpretive signage. That would be a really important thing to raise the profile of this project and to, of course, tell the untold story. Right now, there is no permanent interpretation in the park that tells the story of the enslaved African and indigenous people who lived in, built, and died in the park. And that is it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's helpful to get these updates. Next on our list, I don't see Tony yet, so I will move on to his pronunciation, Amir Khattab. I thought I saw.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, everybody. It's Amr.
Right. Amr, excuse me.
That's okay. No worries. It's a tough name. I suffer from a lack of vowels in my name, so no worries.
It's good. You and the Welsh.
Yeah, exactly.
Please go on.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone for having me. Happy to be here. My name is Amr. I'm with New York Public Library's Government Community Affairs team. I will not be taking too much of your time, just a minute or two here. We did send our budget priorities to Community Board 8 a few weeks ago and just want to briefly revisit that. So system-wide right now, the library is in an interesting position where we did restore service in July. Our top priority right now is reconnecting with those community members who we lost touch with during the pandemic, during all-out closure, and trying to get back in touch with those patrons and make sure that they know that our in-person services are back. At the same time, though, we know that we're not returning to, it's not back to normal. We're arriving at a new normal. And so there are things we learned during closure about remote services, digital services, things like outdoor programming that we're also trying to maintain to adjust to this new world we live in. So system-wide, that's where we are right now, trying to balance between those two goals. And on the capital front right now, our primary focus is to finish our roughly 65 active projects that we have with the city. Now, the process to completing these projects is a bit complex. There are a lot of challenges to completing projects on time when it comes to working with DDC. You may be familiar with this. So that's why a lot of our focus is on finishing these projects first. That being said, when it comes to Community Board 8, I did want to talk a little bit about capital. We have the new Van Cortlandt branch, which was completed very recently, the new Kingsbridge branch moderately recently. There's a project at Riverdale for the retaining wall and exterior facade that we did get funded. So that's great. And then NYPL has put in for a full renovation of the Spite and Dival branch. This is a $24.3 million project inside and out. We pitched it to the city as part of our 10-year capital ask. They did not choose to fund it, but we are hopeful that the new administration will be interested in funding it. So we will continue pushing on that in the upcoming budget. So overall, we're asking community boards to help us increase our expense funding for what I mentioned about balancing between those goals. And then, of course, on the capital front, Spite and Dival is our top priority. Thanks, everybody.
Very good. Amr, I hope you understand that we're focusing right now on fiscal year 2023. Well, the projects you're talking about sound new and are very worthy of discussion in the coming year for the following fiscal year. But we will contemplate how to promote them as best as possible, as soon as possible.
Great.
So next, again, I still don't see Tony here yet. but I think Deirdre Burke was next on the list. Deirdre?
Hi, good evening, and thanks for this opportunity. I want to address two areas of the absolutely amazing budget requests, and hopefully you get them all, but we know that's not going to happen. My first concern, and I'm not going to cite each individual area where things were mentioned that relate to my concern, is the Department of Transportation. And what each time there's a request for a street design or change, and that's going to happen, I would request that the ASTM standards of design and practice be employed. And what this means is that in the design, before a road is repaved, a street is repaved, it's milled, there is crowning, and the drainage is taken into account. And the reason why this is so important is because all over the city, actions taken by the DOT have resulted in flooding. Specifically, in terms of street repaving, the water without the curbs, because they keep raising and raising the pavement, without the curbs, water can run across the sidewalk and into buildings and into building lobbies. The second part of this is that if they use appropriate standards of paving practice, they will not have to keep raising manholes and put a collet around them to be able to raise the manhole cover. And what happens when they raise the manhole cover, when there's a lot of water in the street, the covers burst open, spewing water. If the manhole covers were at the right level, they would not be causing those episodes of popping off manhole covers and flooding. The practices that the DOT is employing have been creating flooding and creating choke points. And I feel that this should be addressed in that it hinders evacuation and the employment of emergency vehicles. And all throughout your amazing PowerPoint, there are opportunities to use appropriate paving practice and have the Department of Transportation pay attention to these things so that we have curbs. And that might even prevent all of those guys who like to run into buildings and stores because there's no curb to stop them. My second area of concern is parks, specifically the Putnam Trail. Last year I spoke about the same thing, and parks people are always interested in increased enforcement to prevent the ATVs, the racing bicycles. I used to use the Putnam Trail all the time. Now one takes their life in their hands to go anywhere near the Putnam Trail.
3 minutes.
Nobody who has a disability can use the Putnam Trail. So what I'm going to suggest is you take a page from the DOT and create a trail diet, narrow the trails so they're not attractive to ATVs, especially in the part that's most used. And this would also give us an opportunity to exercise a sensitivity to the African burial ground. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Deirdre,
Yep.
thanks for your inputs there. They mostly relate to policy, not to our budget items, but I would encourage you to bring them up at the Traffic and Transportation and Parks and Recreation meetings. I think they're valid points, but fit in the context of the policies that the respective agencies implement, but not necessarily the budget priorities that we've listed and are discussing tonight and we'll be voting on in the regular meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. I did see niches where they might apply, but I do agree with you. Thank you very much.
Surely. Thanks for contributing. Again, so, I still don't see Tony.
But is there anyone else from the public?
We have a little time left over that if
David,
anyone
let's
has
just
any
check.
Excuse me?
Let's just check and ask if there's anyone from the public.
Yeah, that's what I was doing, Laura. Thank you. I've got the
Okay.
gavel. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we have about 10 or 15 minutes and some flexibility. So if anybody has specific budget items related to the 60-odd capital and expense priorities that we listed on the website. If you want to raise your hand, I can call upon you and give you 3 minutes, but please do focus on these budget items. Any takers?
David, I
Mr.
see Ed
Green.
Green's hand up.
Ed,
Hey,
what's on
Dave.
your mind?
Hey, David. I just wanted to say that I know Bob Fanuzzi expressed he wanted to move up on the list, and I just, for our committee, I think it would be fine. We've had recent developments with our cameras that are all good news, so I'd be willing to let him to move up one over us, and take our place as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
Great.
I think
Okay,
we can get into
we'll
the
make that
details
change
of
during the
during
budget piece.
the voting during the meeting. Thank you. But thanks for the flexibility.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Okay.
All right, so given it doesn't appear that there's anybody else, I would like to ask if anybody would like to offer a motion to adjourn the budget hearing for fiscal year 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Rosemary. Anybody care to second it?
Second.
I think Myra beat you, Bob. Okay.
Third.
I will ask you, does anybody oppose the move to adjourn the meeting? Hearing none, I will deem that it has been passed unanimously, and this hearing is now closed, and I thank you all for your participation.
Very good, very good.
Unfortunately, I don't have any music to play to kill the air, the time.
Well, that's
for
all right.
10 minutes, but
We could see if our gallery session, our participants are on. Kira,
4, 5, 6.
oh,
Yes,
We-
I'll have a
8,
quick
9,
check right now, Laura.
sure, okay.
12, 13, 14,
And
15, 16,
I think we could take a
17.
2,
We have
3
about
minute
18
break.
people, 18 members. So yeah, that might work.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go get some water. So, I'll be
Okay, and
right
then Laura,
back
we
while
can
you're-
start on gallery after. I do see some folks here.
okay. So I'm gonna be right back and then we'll start.
Okay.
Okay, that was fast, huh? Okay, so we will begin with our gallery session. And the first on my list is Miranda Goodwin Robb from New York State Independent Redistricting Commission.
Laura, let's move on to Norris first.
Okay,
Is not here yet.
okay. So that's Norris De Jesus Patron, the Director of the Changing Futures Program and Community Coordinator, Sagrario Garcia on the Changing Futures Program for Domestic Violence Month, and this is from Kingsbridge Heights Community Center. So who wants to start from Kingsbridge Heights?
Hi, I don't know if my community coordinator is on yet because I'm always a little early. But I'll start. I did send a slide. I had like maybe 4 or 5 slides and share it. Oh, I can't share because I'm not the host.
I can make you the co-host and you can share your slides.
Okay. Slides are up. I'm trying to get them.
Hit our co-host. She should be. Hi, Norris. Can you check if you're able
Yeah.
to share now?
Let me see. Yes, I'm able to share now. I have you. Okay, so thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present some activities that we're having for the awareness of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. You know, like I said, I'm the director of the Changing Futures program located at Cambridge Heights Community Center. And as we know, statistically, there's nearly 20 people per minute that are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During that time, up to more than 10 million women and men, nearly 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men have experienced severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Intimate partner violence accounts for 15% of all violent crimes. And I like to mention the two distinctions between intimate partner violence and domestic violence, which is something that we want to make sure that the community is aware. Domestic violence is when you live with the person, and domestic violence is not only a romantic partner or intimate partner. Domestic violence can also be a parent against a child, an adult child against a parent, elder abuse, and intimate partner violence. It can also be someone that you ended your relationship with. You're no longer under the same roof. And in most cases, a DV are never reported. So the statistics we get are from people that report. Men who are victimized are substantially less likely than women to report their situation to police. And 1 out of every 4 gay men and 2 out of every 5 lesbian women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And experiencing domestic violence is correlated with high rates of depression and suicide. So these are stats that are very important to us, and that's a big reason that we wanted to bring this awareness to the community. As you can see, domestic violence, intimate partner violence does not discriminate, and it can affect anyone. So we have 2 events. One of them begins the 19th and the 23rd, on Tuesday, the 19th, from 1 to 3 o'clock, and the 23rd, Saturday, the 23rd, from 1 to 3 o'clock, which is the Beyond Trauma for women who are survivors or maybe currently going through an abusive relationship, domestic violence, or survivors of sexual abuse and domestic violence in their adulthood. And it's a great way to, as I said, inform people in the community, women in the community, what is abuse. And abuse can be verbal, emotional, financial. Yes, there's a hand. Sorry. Elvis?
No, we won't take questions, Norris,
Oh.
right now, so you can just continue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
And then on the 28th, we have our Domestic Violence Awareness Month event. It's from 2 to 4. We'll be giving out promotional items with awareness information about domestic violence and promoting the groups that we're having. It's a 12-week group, I forgot to say. The Beyond Trauma is actually 12 sessions. So we'll also be promoting that group if people want to sign up and be part of it. Right now we have for women, we would like for men, but statistically more women report abuse than men do. So it's been hard to start a group for men. And Michelle's Message of Hope is the name that we use. We honor Michelle, who unfortunately was in a domestic violence situation. It became an intimate partner violence. She ended the relationship with him, and he ultimately murdered her and killed herself. So her message of hope is for people to be aware how things can escalate. It started with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse. Didn't see it as such. It escalated to her life ending at a very young age. I don't think she was even 25 when it happened. And she was an amazing, beautiful woman. And we won't see all the other great things that she could have done with her life because of it. And our program provides a lot of different types of services, talk therapy, family therapy, psychoeducation for families and members, emotional support for All, group therapy, Beyond Trauma for Women, Parenting Journey is actually is co-ed for male, female, for all who guardians of children who work with children, have children, or had raised children. Animal assisted therapy, which are innovative services with horticultural therapy / nature therapy.
All right, Norris, if you don't mind just wrapping up, your
Yeah.
3 minutes is up, but feel free to finish. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, those are the services we provide. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
This is incredibly important and informative, and thank you so much for coming this evening. For those of you who are just tuning in, we are in the middle of our gallery session for our October meeting. Next on the list, Mary Seri, I know you're here, I saw you. Okay,
I am.
you're on.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Seri, and I reside at 2727 Palisade Avenue. I am here to speak once again about the flooding of our building caused by the failed DOT project at the corner of Palisade and Capoc. For those of you who are not familiar with the area, High Point is the only building on Palisade Avenue located directly at the intersection. The nearest apartment is located, I would say, approximately a football field away from us. So again, High Point is the only building on Palisade that is at this intersection. I attended the September 13th meeting of Traffic and Transportation Committee and was disturbed by the misinformation which was spread not by the community, but rather by a committee member. This is a problem we need fixed now, not in 5 or 10 years. So I am here today to focus and discuss only the facts. Deputy Commissioner Forgione met with the working group along with elected officials at Capoc and Palisade on the problem this DOT project caused, and I am part of that working group. The Deputy Commissioner acknowledged the cement needs to be cut back. She also acknowledged the stormwater is not going to the existing north and south catch basins. She also acknowledged the current configuration needs to be changed. These are all facts. The Deputy Commissioner is committed to raising the curb line in front of our building to help assist with this problem. She has also acknowledged that raising the curb line is not enough, and this is not the final solution to prevent flooding. We are currently awaiting a response to the meeting from the Deputy Commissioner. So we, including the elected officials, conveyed our position that we want the sidewalks restored to the original configuration. Why? Because the original configuration has proven effective in preventing floods for the last 70 years at High Point. So I want to share some of my research. Rainfall totals. In September of 1966, on one day, 5.54 inches. September of 69 rather, 6.28 inches. November 1972, 5.6. November 1977, 9.9. Okay, I could keep going. This building is 70 years old. There were other dramatic storms. We never got flooded. There isn't one resident. There isn't one resident who wants the real threat of storms flooding our building to stop now. I urge you when discussing the problem to think about what you would say or recommend to DOT if it was your parents, your family members who lived here, if their property value was compromised. We want the sidewalk restored to its original configuration. It is the only proven solution, and we are asking the full board to stand with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. Next on the list is,
Can I comment?
we're not entertaining comments at this juncture. I'm sorry. We just have our gallery list and this is our protocol. Is Miranda Goodwin Robb here, Kira?
Miranda's coming in as we speak. Just give her a second and she'll be being admitted.
And then after that, we have Neva.
Okay, Miranda. Hi, good evening.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Miranda.
I'm here with the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission. I'm just going to talk really quickly about redistricting, why it's important, and how you can participate. So every 10 years after the census, the entire country, redraws its congressional lines, and then New York also redraws its state and state Senate and state assembly lines. This year marks the first year that in New York, it's happening through the Independent Redistricting Commission as opposed to through the legislature itself. So I'm here to tell you that the commission has posted draft maps on its website. So I'm urging you all to take a look at that and then give the commission your feedback. What makes the commission separate from the past is that we are actively seeking input from the public. All of your comments go into the public record, and you can read what your neighbors and other fellow New Yorkers have said on our website. I'll put the website in the chat and make sure that, I can't put in the chat here, but I'll send the information to the district manager and make sure you guys can see that. But basically where we're at in the process now is that you can review the draft maps that we've proposed so far. Give us your feedback. We're having a hearing for residents of the Bronx specifically on November 9th at the Bronx Works Gymnasium. We'll be there from 3 p.m. until anyone has anything left to say. So we're really looking forward to having the public participate in this process. Again, it is the first time it's happened. So we're excited to see how this goes. And it's nice to see some familiar faces. I did grow up in Riverdale as well. So hello to those of you that I've known. So yeah, does anyone have any questions?
Miranda, I have a question.
Yes.
The event on November 9th, will you be sending us a flyer for us to send our board members and post on social media?
Yes, I think I sent that, but I will send it again to make sure you all have it. So yeah.
And would there be any possibility of you having time at a later date to come to a committee meeting where there'd be more time for Q&A? What's your deadline?
It's not impossible. We just are a small staff and we're trying to get to every community board across the city as well as, town boards across the state. So I can't promise that, but, we are available to be a resource for any questions, and we really want to make this an easy process for everyone to participate in.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Miranda. And we'll be looking forward to posting any flyers, any information, and you send, anything, and we'll send it out to the board and put it up. Okay,
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Last but not least is Neva Hia discussing Independence Avenue. Okay.
I live at 3311 Giles Place.
Giles, okay, wait, is Neva here? I'm sorry.
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Is she muted, Kira?
No.
She's not muted.
Very low. You have to
hear me
move.
now?
Yeah, wait, you can raise your volume, please.
You hear me?
Neva, you just need to move closer to the microphone.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Much better.
Okay.
Much better.
Sorry about that. Okay, I live at 3311 Giles Place, and my apartment faces west toward the courtyard of my building, and 3340 to 3344 Fort Independence Street, which is a building on Fort Independence. The loud music and parties from that building, especially from Friday evening to Monday morning, are becoming unbearable. The music appears to be coming from 3 different tenants. There are times when they are battling to see who can play their music the loudest. The parties, which are happening every Saturday, consist of a DJ, and they have lots of call and response, shouting and singing. It is so consistent that I believe a nightclub is operating in that building.
That's
Neva,
very,
Neva,
very
you're
shocking.
muted.
Yeah, now
Somehow
I,
you just got muted.
I'm sorry, my hand hit the.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I'm sorry, I was
Neva, we didn't hear the last thing.
saying one of the tenants plays his music. Did you hear about, I believe, a nightclub is operating?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But a little closer to the mic would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you. One of the tenants plays his music so loud that I can make out the garbled vocals and the bass vibrates my building. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Even powerful windstorms like Ida have never affected this building, but his music does. It vibrates the building. Even when he plays it slower, there's a constant thumping, which reminds me of that Geico commercial where the family upstairs is clogging with the dancing. It's like it's persistent and annoying. I don't know which apartment they live in. And I actually have a voicemail from an officer who stated that she asked them to turn down the music. Usually the music may go down for a few minutes, but it goes back up to louder. I don't know when the music goes down, if the person is answering a phone or the police are speaking to him or her. This past Sunday, the person turned his music up right before 2 a.m. and he only had it on for about 15 minutes, which he knows that if I called the police, they would be, by the time they arrived, the music would have been down already. So I believe this behavior is intentional and it's getting so unbearable that I'm considering on weekends to go to a hotel, and I'm constantly on edge because I never know when the assault from the music will begin. And that's all.
That is very, very distressing to hear, Neva. And our chair, Ed Green, is on from Public Safety. Ed, when is your next meeting?
Our next meeting is on Tuesday, the 19th.
I'm hoping, Neva, that you might be able to tune in there and have a little more time and give and take. We do have our commanding officer here tonight, and I'm sure he will address that as well when we get to his remarks.
Or may I also just add, Miss, you've emailed the board office over this weekend and your complaints were forwarded over to the 50th precinct. And I spoke with the captain earlier, and I believe he's also going to speak to this issue when it's his turn to present. So thank you for attending. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And moving on.
I'm sorry,
Last-
Laura, I wanted to ask Neva a clarification question.
Okay.
Hi, Neva. Who have you been working with you've been working with the 50th on this issue? You said they know who the people are?
I always send 311 requests in, and they would close it basically immediately, and I keep reopening them. And I asked on the 311 request whether the officer would contact me so I can let them into the building so they would know what I'm experiencing.
Yep.
So I received a message from an officer stating that they asked the people through the gate to turn down the music. And it did go down for about 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and then it went right back up again.
And they closed out the complaint?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Neva. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Neva, it's Ed Green of Public Safety, Chair of Public Safety. I'm curious to hear what the captain's response is to that, but regardless, I'll bring it up again, and it's something we'll continue to monitor at Public Safety, because yeah, I feel for you. It sounds like a rough situation over there.
Okay, thank you. Last but not least, for gallery session, we have Jamie Cobham from Congressman Jamal Bowman's office.
Afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for making the time. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So my name is Jaime, and I work in the DC office for Congressman Bowman. And I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on a bill that we've been working on for the last few months that we hope to introduce in the coming weeks as a part of the reconciliation effort to try to make sure we get as much money to the district as possible. And on a high level, the idea is we would be taxing the unrealized capital gains of billionaires. What does that mean? Generally, people know that the wealthy and billionaires in particular play by a different set of rules in the economy, especially when it comes to taxes. Recently, we found out that most billionaires pay less than 10% in taxes overall, mostly because they can use things like the capital gains tax to completely avoid all liability. In the way that you and I make most of our money in wages, they make most of their money in market gains and investment gains. Those gains are not taxed until they actually sell any of those assets. So if I made $1 million on Google stock, I had that money tax-free until I choose to sell that stock. So what this bill does is make sure that all these billionaires are asked to pay their fair share so that we can raise money to do the things in the reconciliation package that are actually going to help people in everyday life. And what does that really mean? We project that this could raise about $1 trillion over 10 years. And that sounds almost abstract. What does $1 trillion really mean other than being an absurdly large number? That's about a 1-to-1 cost estimate for the expanded child tax credit. So if in the last few months, you've been receiving checks in your bank account every month for a couple of $100s, and if that money has made a huge difference in your ability to either make ends meet or to live comfortably with yourself and your family, this is the type of bill that can raise money to make sure that we do things like that in perpetuity, and also to make sure that we do things like that at a larger scale, and include other provisions such as paid family leave to make sure that if you have a child that you need to care for or a family member that is sick, that you can get the time to take care of them without jeopardizing your livelihood overall. So I'm going to send Jesse as well as the organizers here my contact information. So if anyone has questions about this bill or how we can go about taxing billionaires to make sure that we actually fund the programs that help everyday people, please feel free to reach out over at Congressman Bowman's office, and I would be happy to walk you through the text or answer any questions that you might have on the bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, let's see. That concludes our public gallery session. And do we have
Sergio's hand is up.
I'm sorry. Who?
Sergio's hand is up.
Oh, okay. Sergio, sorry. Thank you.
Disregard, Madam Chair. I'll lower it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other hands? Nothing. Okay. So, is there a report from the Bronx Borough President's Office? Is Ish here or another representative? Okay. Report from the 50th precinct. Tanya, can you put
I don't see it.
Captain Gervin's there.
Good, Captain Gervin, I see you now. Yes.
Good day.
Captain Gervin, we're ready for our report, and welcome to our meeting tonight. It's yours.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. We're doing pretty good in crime. We did have a bad week in regards to our grand larcenies or theft of property. That can mostly be attributed to a business within the command that left all the keys in their trucks and they were stolen. So we're going to send our crime prevention officer down there to speak to them about how they could better safeguard their equipment and not affect our crime stats so that we look like we're having a problem here. If we knock those grand larcenies off of our crime stats, we'd still be doing about what we did last year during the pandemic, which was pretty low crime. Violence is still down, and basically it's property crime that's driving our statistics here. And that's it. We're looking good, pretty good. And then I'd like to address the noise complaint. I think there were at least 8 311 calls from this community member up on Giles Place. I worked the day shift that day. I was over at Van Cortlandt Park with our event with Manhattan College for the cross country invitational. I don't know what happened with her complaints here, but I'm going to send our neighborhood coordination officers from Sector Adam to have a one-on-one with that member of the community and see if we can have a remedy to the situation. That's something that happens throughout the city, and people should be able to rest in their homes at night. And I see the times that they came in. It starts just before midnight and it goes into the early morning hours. Like I said, I think 8 complaints. So we're going to have a one-on-one with her, and we'll have that addressed, and I'll give you a report back on like an email and what the resolution of that is.
Thank you, Captain Gervin. Is there anything going on with that landlord? Does the landlord have any control over the tenants in the building? Do you often ever work with the landlord?
I haven't seen this address come to light recently. I look back in our 311 system and it goes, some complaints go back to April. I'm just looking at what happened over the weekend on 10/10, 10/9, 10/10, and 10/11. October 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Well, this is a very vexing problem, and I hope that we can improve that situation. Are there any other questions for Captain Gervin? I see David.
I have my hand raised.
Oh, Sergio? Okay, I'll tell you what I see. I see David and Margaret, Sergio and Dan. And that'll be the extent of the time we have for questions on this before we move on. So David, you go first.
Yes, thank you. Captain, it may be reported later in the Parks Committee meeting, but I just wanted to commend you and your team for working with the PEP officers for the Manhattan College Invitational on Saturday. I thought it went, frankly, flawlessly. I think there was few issues about traffic, about double parking. There were a few incidences, but I think that the presence of your people at a couple of strategic corners and flowing up and down Broadway made for a very good day and made it, I think, tolerable for the nearby residents and frankly, a brilliant experience for the kids who from 13 states ran the race. And thank you for what you and your team did.
Thank you, Dave.
That's nice to hear. Moving on, Margaret Della. Margaret?
Hi, good evening. Captain, could you tell us a little bit about what the process is or how stealing car parts is factoring into the data that you just reported on? I live at around 238 in Greystone. We had 2 instances over the weekend and then one this morning at 4:30 a.m. people stealing car parts right off the street, right off of cars. So could you give us a sense of where does that fall into the data and what, if anything, your team is able to do about it?
That's falling underneath the grand larceny aspect of it. We've also had a lot of grand larceny automobiles. Those vehicles that are stolen tend to be, which is unusual for this command, older vehicles, 2001, 2003 vehicles. What we see here are mostly tires and rims and catalytic converters being removed from automobiles and trucks. And that's based on the model and make of the cars, because these catalytic converters have certain metals that they're salvaging, and that's why they pick those particular vehicles based on the vehicle. They have certain metals that they want. That, and then the driving of the, it's also being driven as the tires and rims. That's been going on for a while. We have our midnight platoon commander, our frontline supervisors directing the officers to those areas that we've had incidents of theft, and we haven't come up with anything recently as a live arrest. We also have a long-term auto crime investigation into the area, which is still ongoing, so I can't comment on that. It's working on a federal level, and they're going to take down numerous subjects in that case, but that hasn't broken yet. But that's what we're doing. Just patrol officers being aware what to look for, driven by our frontline supervisors to the locations and times that they're occurring at.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see, we have Sergio and then Dan. Sergio.
Thank you. Welcome, Captain. So good evening. One of the issues we've been having with the noise at Fort Ford Park It has improved though over the summer. There were people putting speakers out into the, on the sidewalk outside the park area. 311 reports were made by myself, by my neighbors. One of the issues that the board is still following up on at my request is the integrity of the disposition of those reports. There's some that are closed out while the music is still playing. And we videotaped it and, sent the exact times in. It is a concern, and the quality of life issues are very real. And I know there's something that don't make the crime statistics necessarily, but they are something that's very important to the neighborhood when 1,000 people can't sleep.
100% in agreement. I'm a quality of life guy, and I think that quality of life precedes crime. So if we can address those quality of life conditions, I think we can cut down the overall crime. Fort Ford Park, Washington's Walk. I've been there myself. I've also sent pictures of the speakers that we've taken to Community Board 8 because they received some of those complaints also, and know that we're having these guys move on, or we're actually seizing the equipment if they give us a difficult time. I've also spoken to Father Franco over at Our Lady of Angels Church. He same information coming from him as you. There is activity past park hours in both Washington's Walk, which is behind his rectory, as well as Fort Ford Park on Reservoir and Sedgwick. And I'll look into the actual 311s if you those are the ones you're talking about. I'll follow up on those dispositions.
Thank you.
You know, it's what's speaking to me is the integrity of the 311 system, because whenever a constituent resident calls 311 and they know something hasn't been taken care of, and yet the case is closed, it's like a smack in the face, the fact that they took the time to make this complaint, give us the complaint number, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's another issue for this board to look at, the 311 system, because it used to be a lot more effective. I wonder if there's data on that, but now things are closed and the dead tree is still standing or the noise is still going on. You know, it's kind of a theme that we're hearing, and maybe we could talk more about, you know, this is larger than the 5-0. It's an issue with the 311 system, period, which we depend on. The city runs on it. So throwing that out there. Last but not least, Dan.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up on what Neva, Sergio, and now Laura said about the 311 complaints being closed out while they're still existing. And Captain, if you could address that for us, maybe next month when you have a little bit of time to think about it. I think the bigger concern that everyone's saying is that they're calling, police are showing and closing out complaints with the incident still occurring. Thank you.
Yes, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on our agenda, we are fortunate tonight to have Senator Biaggi, Assemblyman Dinowitz, and Councilman Eric Dinowitz. And so here to say a few words, Senator Biaggi. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. I apologize for this very bright light behind me. Don't let it distract you from the importance of what I want to share with you, which is a lot. So I'm going to try to be as brief and also as quick as possible. The first thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention, which I'm sure already is on everybody's mind, is that obviously there is an election coming up. The deadline to change your voting address is October 13th. The last day to apply online or by mail for an absentee ballot is October 18th. Early voting begins on October 23rd and it ends on October 31st on Halloween. And then the last day to apply for an absentee ballot in person at your borough board of elections is November 1st, 2021. Obviously, election day is November 2nd. I don't want to belabor this, but I want to be really clear, and I'll put this in the chat because I think it's important. On the back of your ballot, there will be 5 important things to vote on. Different proposals that are related to constitutional amendments. So please make sure not only that you turn your ballot over and vote for these different initiatives, which are ranging from things that affect our judicial branch, as well as our Board of Elections, of course, but also the right to clean air. And so I will put that in the chat so everybody has a really good visual of it. This is the really neat one pager, so you'll have it soon. In addition to that, I just wanted to also bring to everyone's attention that I am already aware of the proposal that has been made with regard to the homeless shelter. So I'm going to continue to not only educate myself, but also understand, of course, the needs of the community. Obviously, if it was up to me, and hopefully soon this will be a reality, we will be able to pass legislation that essentially allows for us to use vouchers, which keep people in their homes and does not actually lead to an increased population of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. And so that's the ultimate goal, and obviously building housing. But in the meanwhile, obviously I'm still monitoring this with my team. I also just want to bring to everyone's attention, and I know it's not just myself or Congressmember Bowman or Assemblymember Dinowitz or Councilmember Dinowitz, but the fight for, as well as the monitoring of making the intersection at Johnson and Kapok safer in the unfortunate tragedy of the passing of Ruth Mullen is something that not only we're dealing with, but I know every office is dealing with. There is an urgency around it. We've met with the DOT commissioner. They understand that. And they also are working very judiciously, which I feel very grateful for, but they also understand that there is a collective desire and will to make sure that this is prioritized, and also that this intersection is made more safe. In addition to that, I just want to mention three different things that are going on legislatively, and then I'm going to stop talking. The first one, and I'm sure many people are monitoring the news with regard to Rikers Island. Myself and many of my colleagues not only went to Rikers Island, which I represent, but also have been really taking a multifaceted approach to how we can handle this issue, because it is absolutely a humanitarian crisis in Rikers. We know, of course, that less is more has been signed by Governor Hochul, which is incredible. It will allow for technical parole violations to not send people back to jail. It does not go into effect, however, until March of 2022. I joined many of my colleagues in sitting in the Bronx Criminal Court, which was a very interesting experience to observe arraignments. That was important because one of the things I concluded was basically that a lot of the things that people are being arrested for could be addressed through tickets or through desk appearances. And so that was an interesting conversation, and we're working with the DA's offices to try to figure out a really fair and equitable way of how this is working, so we don't send more people to Rikers Island. And then finally, what I want to just mention very briefly is that I joined my colleagues in sending a letter to President Biden, specifically with regard to how the Haitian migrants were being treated. Obviously, that might not be something that you're thinking about every day, but it's obviously something that we can all use our voice on because it matters, and because that was also quite tragic. The last thing I'm going to mention, and I'm going to stop talking, is that while we have a new governor, bills are still getting signed into law, and actually it's happening at a much quicker speed, which feels really exciting to me because it's very different than our previous administration. And so two of my bills have been signed into law, one of which is with regard to a red light issue that one of the areas in the district has been dealing with. And the other one is with regard to debt collectors, which might not be exciting to everybody, but this was a bill that we fought for a few years, which essentially says that debt collectors are required to inform debtors, so those who, of course, are paying debt, that written communications are available to them in large print. Why does that matter? Because not everybody can see well. And also because sometimes when you receive these kinds of different notices, you might not understand what you're even reading, or might have missed it because the font might be too small. That affects a large portion of the population. It affects the disability community. And of course, it affects our elderly. So I'm grateful that that bill has been signed into law finally after several years. And I'm going to stop because I'm sure my time is up. But again, I'm going to put this into the chat. I'm here for questions. Tyler is from my office is also here. And I'm going to be on. So if you have questions for me, you can directly either message me or you can email me. But I'm grateful to be able to join you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're grateful as well. Thank you very much, Senator. Now a few words from Assemblyman Dinowitz. Jeff.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
I'm going to read you a laundry list, but it'll be brief. Anyway, Yesterday, we had our shredding event. People have been asking us for the past year about doing another shredding event as we've done in the past. We did it yesterday. I thank Congressman Adriano Espaillat, Councilman Eric Dinowitz for co-sponsoring it. We collected 55 giant bins of shred, and each bin is 65 gallons. So you do the math. That's a whole lot of shredding. Tomorrow, we are doing our last flu shot event. It'll be at St. Gabriel's from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. If you haven't gotten your flu shot, get it. I don't want to hear any of this anti-vaxxer nonsense. And we are also doing COVID vaccine shots there, Pfizer, for people who haven't been vaccinated yet. It's a first shot, it's not a second shot, and you have to do that on your own, and it's not a booster. But if you haven't gotten your vaccine, I can't imagine there's anybody on this call who hasn't, but you can tell other people. I just want to mention that I'm very unhappy with Mayor de Blasio's announcement that they are going to eliminate the Gifted and Talented program, while recognizing there are some concerns about the program and diversity issues. That doesn't mean you throw out a program which is incredibly important to a lot of people. You try to expand it, reach out to more people, and make it even more successful. Hopefully Mayor Adams will reconsider that change. Last week, I was in attendance with Attorney General Tish James and a lot of my colleagues here in the Bronx, where she announced over $250 million in funding that she collected through settlements, various lawsuits, that's going to go to New York City to fight opioid addiction and just dealing with a whole array of issues regarding opioids. That's going to be really important, I think, for people throughout the city. And also last week, I attended a bill signing. Governor Hochul signed one of my bills and a package of 5 bills, actually, also dealing with the opioid crisis. We are trying to take this issue on head on, because as bad as it was before the pandemic, it's gotten so much worse, and we have to fight it in every possible way. I should let everybody know that the MetroCard vans are going to be expanding where they are in Ward 8. We got the MTA to agree again, as they had in the past, but not recently, to have the buses go to Johnson Avenue, and it'll be on Johnson Avenue on October 29th, November 29th, and December 30th from 9 o'clock to 11:30. And it's also been going to Skyview on the first and third Wednesdays, 10:30 to 12:30, Kingsbridge and Kingsbridge at 231st and Broadway, first and third Wednesdays, 1:30 to 3:30, and Knowles Crescent, second and fourth Fridays, 10 to 12. So that's really a big convenience for people. I again want to thank Mary Siri for her remarks regarding Palisade and KPOC. I won't go into details about it because we all know about it, and she certainly was detailed, but I appreciate what she said and I agree with her sentiment. In addition, the 5 ballot amendments, constitutional amendments, which were already referenced, but it's really very important that you turn over your ballot, whether it's an absentee ballot or an in-person ballot. Those amendments, and I happen to be supporting all 5 of them, include redistricting reform, absentee ballot reform, same-day voter registration, environmental, adding the environment to our Bill of Rights, and an amendment which I wrote dealing with raising the jurisdiction of the civil court to alleviate some of the terrible overcrowding in the Supreme Court. And when we're talking about homelessness, I don't have to remind everybody, the eviction moratorium legislation was my legislation. We passed it 3 times, so it covers a year. And I think it's fair to say that there is nothing that has prevented homelessness during this COVID pandemic. There's nothing that has prevented more than the eviction moratorium. Tens of thousands of people were not evicted because of it. So we have to see where things go in the next few months. I look forward to seeing many of you at tomorrow's meeting on the proposed homeless shelter on 262nd and Broadway. I suspect we'll have a good turnout. And I hope I didn't leave anything out. I really couldn't have, given everything I said. So that's it. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblyman. Next, we have Councilman Eric Dinowitz.
Good evening. Hello, good evening, everybody. You know, I Zoom's nice that more people can have access, but there is something I miss about saying good evening and not hearing it back. It's a very weird feeling. So I'll start with garbage. People love garbage, or they hate garbage, but they love talking about it. So we've been getting a lot of complaints about garbage around Johnson, 235th, 236th Street, the lower portion of Riverdale Avenue, up the Monument. So we've been, so I've been able to secure new trash cans. I'm sure some of you who have been on Johnson Avenue saw them. I think they're a little bigger, but they're also rat proof. What's important to note is that we were able to get these because I knew about this because people reached out to my office complaining about the garbage overflowing. We're still trying to convince Starbucks to maybe help us out with the garbage, given that it's mostly theirs. But I think the new garbage cans will be helpful. They look real nice and they're rat proof. But again, please reach out to our office if there are any needs. I've been able to allocate over $300,000 to cleanup services in the district, including to ACE and Wildcat, and they'll be cleaning around the community, the corridors of Broadway, Mosholu, Oxford, Riverdale Avenue. But please, again, let us know if there are any specific areas in parks or on the streets that need cleaning. They also do graffiti cleanup. But very importantly, if you'd like to organize a community cleanup, ACE and Wildcat, they can actually help by bringing people. They can help participate, but they can also bring the tools that you need to help clean up a street or a park. And again, reaching out to our office and letting us know the need of a specific area or a specific event is the way to do that. Those of you who were at the Traffic and Transportation meeting know this, so it'll be a bit of a repeat for you. But as you know, after the tragic death of Ruth Mullen, the Assembly member and I and Community Board 8 and a number of advocates held a press conference. We subsequently met with the Borough Commissioner of the DOT. And then I think 2 weeks ago, they had installed what they call left turn treatments that are supposed to slow down left turns going down the hill. They repainted the crosswalks. They have committed to moving lampposts to improve the lighting on the crosswalks, as well as making the ADA ramps compliant. They say they've started their traffic study to determine whether a stoplight is appropriate. I heard the speaker in the gallery talk about 2727 Palisade. On Friday, October 1st, Assemblymember Dinowitz, Dan, Rosemary, Laura, from the board and residents of 2727, along with the first deputy commissioner and Bronx Borough Commissioner for the DOT, all came to the site to see, to bring them there and see the site for ourselves. There are obvious changes that need to be made. They offered some changes to it, but there's a lot of concern that it's not going to do the things it needs to do. We all want to shorten crosswalks to make them safer. But the general consensus is there are other ways to do this without redirecting the water. And since we are on water and storms, I want to just briefly mention some legislation because one of it is in relation to create a citywide climate adaptation plan. I actually spoke on the floor about this bill, which I co-sponsored, and it requires the city to develop a 5-borough climate adaptation plan, including various climate hazards impacting the city, storms, sea level rise, tidal flooding, extreme heat, extreme precipitation, extreme wind, wildfire, flooding surge events associated with a storm. And one of the things that's very important about this bill is that it is 5-borough. And in a lot of the climate adaptation plans I've seen or heard about, it focuses on Lower Manhattan. And so what's very important about this is that it will address the needs of the Bronx. I did say on the floor that my district was the one who had the major Deegan flooding, which looked like the Bronx River, which it shouldn't. One of the other bills I sponsored was related to all electric school buses, moving the fleet to become all electric. So yes, making the plan for flood resiliency, coastal resiliency, but also doing what we can to reduce greenhouse emissions. Two other bills I co-sponsored were regarding security guards at our city shelters. One was to provide more training for them, and the other was to ensure that they received equitable pay, prevailing wage. This is especially as they were working, right, being in harm's way during the pandemic, not to mention dealing with our neighbors who probably have the most needs, the highest needs. So those some of the other bills that passed, things related to the plumbing code, which was not an exciting read. It was like 2,000 pages long. Moving NYCHA housing complaints to 311, and a local law to develop an urban agricultural report. I just want to check my notes, see if there's anything. Oh, so two other things. One is at our education committee meeting, we had the Department of Education there again. And one of the problems that I brought up was the same problem that I was bringing up over a year ago, and that so many teachers like myself and so many families brought up, were these last minute decisions. I am a huge fan of vaccine mandates, but one of the issues we ran into, because this was announced at the very last minute, I think while teachers were in school, while things were being litigated, kids were back and forth in the hallway, is now suddenly we have a lot of absences, especially with our paraprofessionals, which serve our highest need children. And they don't have the substitutes that they need, even though they say they do, but they don't. I have a lot of people from across the city contacting me about that. And even for teachers teaching out of license. So one of the things I'm going to continue to press in the Department of Education is to, do what teachers did and plan ahead. So encouraging to have more robust testing, plan for more robust testing especially after the holidays, as people are traveling, maybe traveling the country, seeing family members. Planning now for if there's a vaccine mandate for our younger children, or if they plan to do a vaccine mandate for our children. The last two things I'll leave you with is that we've been partnering with New York Common Pantry and Riverdale Neighborhood House to do a monthly food giveaway for older adults over 60 years old. Our first food giveaway is on October 26th. If you're signed up for our emails or you follow us on Twitter, you'll certainly receive more information, but you can always reach out to our office. And the last thing, which we've been spending a lot of time on, is composting. It was unfortunately and really upsetting that our community board did not have enough. Well, the Department of Sanitation told us our community board did not have enough signups for the early rollout of curbside composting. If you live in a building with 10 or more units, the board or management needs to sign up in order to be eligible. But one of the maddening things is that DSNY counts the amalgamated with 1,500 units, or Skyview with 1,300 units, the same as a single family home out in Brooklyn. That's one sign of each. So we're working to try to get them to recalculate that. But I am encouraging everyone, even if you're in a big building and your board signed up, to sign up yourself. That way we can go to DSNY with numbers and say that there is a need. We are, in my office, we are making a strong push in the upcoming weeks. We've had DSNY at our events, at the shredding event that the assembly member just mentioned, my outdoor office hours, farmers markets. We are waiting on a heat map from DSNY to determine where the signups are. And after that, you should be hearing from us about canvassing events, to go door to door, asking people to sign up for composting, which is really important to get into our neighborhood. And with that, I will say thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I did see one hand, Bob Fanuzzi.
Council member, I just wanted to thank you for your leadership on these two critical environmental issues. One is the composting. So you've already had an event. We look forward to working with you on promoting that. And also, I wanted to let you know that on our agenda for October is a discussion of the mayor's resiliency plan relating to storms. So we would love to hear your perspective, your read on that. I hope you or a member of your staff can attend that meeting to talk about that report. No invited speakers. We're just going to see what's out there. So thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Bob. And I would point out, as he is at every meeting, just as I am, Enzo Manzano, or Lorenzo as it's written there, my staff member dealing with all CB8 issues. So you can always reach out to him as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize Carlos Torres from the Bronx DA's office. Thank you, Carlos, for joining us. Are there any other representatives of elected officials for me to thank for joining us?
Just good evening. This is Carlos Torres from the Bronx DA's office. Just wanted to mention two quick events, if that's possible.
Quickly, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So first of all, my name is Carlos M. Torres. I'm the crime prevention coordinator at the Bronx District Attorney's Office. Thank you very much for having me on. Just want to let everybody know that on Saturday, this Saturday, October 16th, we're having our 4th annual 5K against domestic violence. The event's going to kick off at 9:30 at 161st and the Grand Concourse. It's going to conclude at 12:30 p.m. I'll make sure to send a flyer once this meeting is over. And last but not least, on Saturday, November 6th, we're having our 2nd annual Resource Reentry Fair from 12 to 4 p.m. at Bronx Community Board 12. Once I have the flyer, I would make sure to send it out to the Community Board 8.
Thank you, and we will post it. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our chair's report. I have good news. We've had many conversations with our landlord because, as I reported last month, our office was completely flooded out and destroyed. And the management is paying for a professional licensed company to do the mold removal and the cleaning. I was over there today. They have pulled up all the rugs. They have replaced the floor. They have replaced the drywall. They're doing a great job. They started last week and we hope they'll be finished in a few days, and then we will get our office back. So that is very good news. And of course, the landlord is paying for it. Second bit of good news is that I testified along with Kira on the new office relocation at a 195 hearing on September 22nd at the Department of City Planning. DCAS was also there and everything was very smooth. If all goes to plan, we will be moving next summer. The building is still in construction. So that is my brief report, and we will move on to the treasurer's report. Dio texted she was stuck in traffic on her way back from a wonderful 3-day weekend in Atlantic City. Kira has Dio, and she was going to.
Rosemary has her hand up. I'm sorry. And then I'll do the treasurer's report after.
Okay, you'll do that for Dio. Rosemary, sorry. I didn't see that.
Hi, Madam Chair, I wonder if I could just ask a brief question. I kind of looked through the executive minutes and stuff and didn't see any information on. So if you don't mind, I'd just like to pose a brief question or two to you. There was, we're not all aware, unfortunately, there was a joint Parks and E&S committee meeting scheduled for October 20th that was canceled. I mean, it's a very important meeting so that the community can begin to understand the CSX project that we've been waiting for 11 and 12 years. It's being designed and we know nothing about it. And I think we should. So that meeting was canceled. Just if you could help me understand why, or maybe more importantly, when will it be rescheduled so the community can hear what DEP and Parks Department are planning for our park.
I'll let Bob Fanuzzi address that. Bob?
You're muted, Bob.
I reached out to DEP and on my side, and they're not ready to present. They have nothing to present to us at this point. And we are working closely with them to make sure it happens very soon. And I haven't been in touch with Parks, but DEP is ready.
If I may, Bob, we have emails that came into the community board, to the district manager and to the community board office from DEP that said the following. We've already had meetings with people on the design. Our most recent meeting was June 17th, where we presented our entire concept plan. They are presenting to groups in the community and the community board knows nothing about this. So that is from an email. Kira can share it with you right from DEP. They say, we will be in touch with you to set up a meeting with Community Board 8. They are anxious to engage Community Board 8 throughout the design process and get your feedback. These are direct quotes from DEP emails. So again, I just don't understand why, and it doesn't have to be October 20th, but why this is not a pressing issue on our agenda to share with the community.
Well, I think you mentioned the CSX issue, and that's a little bit of a different issue because it has to do with acquisition, and there's sensitive private party negotiations going on that we're not part of. DEP and DPR are party to that, and we are staying away from that. So we have a new parks chair or a position open for that. And of course, we want to have this meeting you're talking about to find out the extent of what they're thinking. And all I can tell you is they told me they weren't ready on the 20th.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Rosemary. Treasurer's report, Kira?
I'm sorry, Laura, I had a question.
I didn't see your hand.
It's okay.
Dan, yeah.
It's okay. Bob, what did DEP say they wanted to present then in the email?
I don't know what their intention was, Dan. All I
Did
can
you
say
ask?
is that that email wasn't addressed to me. When I asked for the meeting, I'm just telling you what they said. They weren't ready on the 20th.
But they will be ready, and we'll be on it. We'll be on it because this is a very important priority.
So I'm sorry, when you say the email wasn't addressed to you, I'm guessing it went to the board office, but I mean, DEP, I know is normally your agency to deal with, right? I'm just trying to figure out what they wrote to us.
They wrote that
one thing and Rosemary's saying that they wanted to present to us, it sounded like. And
I'm
Bob
sure they
saying
will,
it's not.
Dan, and that meeting will be very, very well publicized. Will it be in November? Will it be in December? We have to coordinate the two, and we will. And I really don't have an answer to the question as to when it will be, but I can tell you it will be because that's a priority.
I just
Okay.
think that in any meeting, there's agency coordination, and this will happen, and happened to be that October was not the right time for DEP. That's the answer.
Yeah, and we'll continue this conversation offline. But every year when I was chair of Environment and Sanitation, there was a meeting, usually in the spring, because it took so many months to coordinate with Parks and ENS. And everybody was there and gave an update and a report. And so it's happened before and it will happen again. I don't think we're equipped tonight to tell you why we haven't had it or when we're going to have it, but I think that we will have it. So.
I just hear, thank you, Laura, and yeah,
Okay.
you have our assurance it'll happen. And I had a personal issue I had to deal with this past month, so. And I know it's something that's really important to the board, obviously, and it's a primary purpose for our committee to deal with DEP and all aspects of daylighting. So thank you for your concern. I'll certainly ramp it up.
Well, I'm gonna.
Okay. Let's see, we have the treasurer's report up. Kira, if you're ready.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. As Laura had mentioned, Dio won't be at this meeting, so I'm just going to briefly go through the treasurer's report. If you have any questions or clarifications, please reach out to me and Dio, and we'll certainly get back to you. So far, the community board has allocated $47,909 this fiscal year. You can kind of see where that money has been allocated from here. Other than personnel detail, which is the next table, it shows what has been allocated and what is remaining. Can you guys see my screen? I just got a message. Okay. And like Laura had mentioned, all of the work that's being done in the office right now is being done per the landlord, and they will be replacing a lot of the equipment that has been ruined due to the storm. So that won't be coming out of our budget. Accounts payable, this just shows what's been encumbered. And again, encumbered means that we've put in a purchase order for it, but we haven't approved final, or OMB, just there's a lag between their system and ours. And this is the rent and energy detail, which comes out of our budget, but it's not, it comes out of a separate budget ran by OMB. And that is our lease, our electric, and that's it. So if anyone has any questions, please let me and Dio know, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible with an answer.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
see. Dan, is your hand up from before or now?
Oh, that was before, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, thank you for that, Kira. And now you can move right into your district manager's report.
Great. And I'll refer everyone to my report at the executive committee meeting last week. Lori mentioned everything that's going on with the office. Me, Tanya, and Pablo are just beyond delighted with getting a new and most importantly, safe office. You know, our safety and the safety of all of you and the public that comes in is at utmost importance. And we received some detail from the landlord today. They're about 50% done with the office. I want to thank Laura, Tanya, myself for popping in, making sure everything is okay. Like I had mentioned at exec, our office phones were out of service for some time because of the work that they were doing in the office. Everything should be back up and running now. I'm going to be going over there tomorrow morning and just double checking on everything. If you haven't done so already, please take a look at the board list and committee list, and please let us know if there are any changes. I know many board members have submitted new numbers, new email addresses. Please let us know this week. And if you've done so already, we have the details and we've made the changes. I just don't want to have to keep resending the document out over and over again, and it kind of gets shuffled. So take a look at that and let us know if there are any changes as soon as possible. And that goes for the committee list as well. And lastly, I know Omar will be presenting on this, and Senator Biaggi had mentioned it, but I just want to let everyone know, especially the community, we are getting your emails, we are getting your phone calls, your voicemails about the proposed homeless shelter on Broadway. And we are responding to everyone as fast as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Thank you. Is there any report from the Department of City Planning? Okay, so before we get to our committee reports, we have a board election to take place. And as you know, we have two openings for secretary and for Parks Committee Chair. And I want to thank Rosemary and Lisa for their invaluable work. And the new people, whoever you are, you're going to have big shoes to fill. So I just want to say that. I think we'll start with the, you know what? I forgot. See, Lisa's not here to remind me. We have to take attendance at this juncture before we get into the election. So Bob?
I have the list, Laura.
Perfect, perfect.
Ready to go.
Okay, so why don't you take attendance? I know we have a quorum, but we'll take attendance and then we'll get on to it.
Okay, so when I call your name, please indicate whether you're here. Sylvia Alexander.
Here.
Constance Barnes Watson.
Here.
Bob Bender, here. Kelly Buford.
Present.
Thank you. Christopher Calhoun.
Here.
Joy Campbell Privetere. Joy Campbell Privetere. Okay, we'll come back. Sebastian, oh boy. If you're here, Sebastian, please tell me how to pronounce your last name as well as tell me you're here.
Sebastian emailed, he has his child is in the hospital. He's not on tonight.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, Laura. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Courtney Dastis Galvin. Courtney Dastis Galvin. All right. Lisa Dow.
Here, present.
Thank you, Lisa. Margaret Della.
Present.
Margaret Donato.
Present.
Thank you, Margaret. Paul Ellis,
Present.
Diomaris Escanio Bell.
Present.
Oh, welcome, Dio.
Hi.
Moses Esema.
Present.
Thank you. Bob Finuzzi.
Present.
Thank you, Bob. Nick Fazio.
Present.
Thank you, Nick. Steve Fruit.
Present.
Thank you. David Gilman.
Present.
Rosemary Ginty.
Present.
Julia Gomez.
Present.
Thank you, Julia. Marvin Goodman. Marvin Goodman. I'll come back. Ed Green.
Present.
Robert Jaklowski.
Present.
Osvaldo Jimenez. Osvaldo Jimenez. I'll come back. Myra Joyce.
Present.
Robert Kaplan.
Present.
Thank you. Luis Lopez.
Present.
Thank you. Charles Merdler.
Charles is out of the country.
Okay. Ted Morris. Ted Morris. Come back. Omar Murray.
Present.
Thank you, Omar. Dan Paternak.
Present.
Tracy Pardo. Tracy Pardo. Okay, Karen Pesh. Karen Pesh.
I thought I saw Karen.
I saw Karen too. In fact, I see her now.
Sure.
Yeah, there she is.
Thank
Sure.
you, Karen. Rita Proctor Lowe. Rita, I see you. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, here I am. Sorry.
Thank you, Rita.
You're welcome.
Julie Reyes.
Julie emailed she won't be with us tonight.
Thank you. Georgia Santiago.
Present.
Thank you, Georgia. Ramdat Singh.
Present.
Thank you. Laura Spalter.
Present.
Camelia Tepelis.
Present.
Thank you, Camelia. Jill Towns. Jill Towns. Okay. Deborah Travis.
Present.
Stephen Vasquez.
Present.
Thank you. Sergio Villaverde.
Presente.
Gracias. And Martin Wolpoff.
Here, but no present.
Okay. All right, just one more time on people who did not respond. Joy Campbell Privatere. Okay, Sebastian is not here. Courtney Dastis Galvin. Marvin Goodman. Osvaldo Jimenez. Chuck. Ted Morris. Tracy Pardo. Jill Towns. All right, well, we usually have a quorum.
Okay, that's good. And I just want to mention, if you leave the meeting early, just let Kira know, because you could be counted in a vote because we don't know your apps, you left the meeting. So that's fine. Just let us know. Okay, so having a quorum and having our attendance, we'll move on. We're going to have an election for secretary. And at this juncture, I'm going to take any nominations from the floor. Please raise your hand if you wish to nominate someone from the floor. Okay, I see.
We have been Bob Bender.
Okay, Bob Bender.
Yes, I would like to nominate Rob Jaklowski for secretary. I know Rob from the Parks Committee. When I chaired the Parks Committee, he was a member of that committee and a very good member of that committee. He's He's very articulate, very low key, very quiet guy. But I also know that he teaches at the College of Mount St. Vincent. And I did learn from Rob that he was chair of the faculty senate at the college for 8 years and served on numerous committees there, some of which he chaired. And God knows if you can do that, you can probably be secretary of Community Board 8. So I think he's a good candidate.
Yeah, but he's got those weird ears.
Thank you, Bob. Are there any other nominations from the floor at this juncture? Deb, is your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in favor of Rob as well.
Oh, please go ahead.
Rob and I are part of the same class as community board members. We came in the same year, and I've served with Rob on the Parks Committee as well. And I just, as a fellow English major, I appreciate the sensibility that he brings to questions facing the community. I think that he's very thoughtful, he's very detail oriented, and he's fair. And I think he would really make a wonderful secretary. So I wanted to encourage people to vote for him for secretary.
Thank you, Deborah. Are there any other hands for nominations or to speak? I'll just wait a minute. Seeing no hands, I think we're ready for a vote on this nomination.
Does Rob accept the nomination?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Bob. David,
I do.
Thank you.
I do. Thank you. I don't know if I should say anything at this point.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Yeah, so Bob is right. I've chaired lots of committees and taken lots of minutes. And I was chair of the department for 8 years. I've been part of many middle states evaluations, which I think Bob Fanuzzi knows. That is really a great opportunity for assembling and collecting minutes and agendas and proposals and syllabi, and collecting and analyzing surveys and evaluations and assessment tools. So I've had lots of experience doing that kind of detailed work. And at this point, I've been on the community board 3 years. And so I think it's time to accept more responsibility. And I think this really does suit my kind of temperament, and it's well within my, I think, wheelhouse. So I ask you to vote for me, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Marty, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, there are no other nominations coming forward, so I make a motion nominations be closed and that we vote by acclamation.
Second. Okay. All those in favor of Rob as our next secretary, say aye.
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 Oh, I almost feel like we're in person.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Well, he'll be saying aye very soon. Thank you, Rob. Next, we have accepting nominations for chairing the Parks Committee. Very active committee, as our discussion has already shown. We will now take nominations from the floor for our Parks Committee. Are there any nominations? Julia.
Julia has her hand up.
Yes. Go ahead.
I nominate Ramdat Singh.
Ramdat, do you accept the nomination? See, I learned.
I do accept.
Thank you. Any other nominations at this juncture for Parks? We'll just wait a minute.
I see no other hands.
Okay, I see no other hands. Ramdat, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Julia, for nominating me. As you know, I came on to this board just last year, but looking forward to learning and growing and taking more leadership capacity, and continue to advocate for our parks, because we see how important they were during quarantine, and to make sure that they are heavily resourced, clean, and also safe for all community members. So looking forward to learning and growing and advocating for our parks in this leadership capacity.
Thank you, Ramdot. I see Marty's hand up again. Thank you, Marty.
Make the same motion, that nominations be closed, and we vote by acclamation.
Okay, so everyone, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
There is no other vote, and we're all very, very happy and feeling very positive, and we're going to give Rob and Ramdot as much support as we can. Thank you both. You have big shoes to fill, but you'll be getting lots of support. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. It's too late now. So moving on to our committee reports, we'll begin with aging. Okay. Dan.
Oh, thank you, Laura. We did not have a meeting this month because it fell on Columbus/Indigenous Peoples Day. So our next meeting is in November. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to budget, where we'll finish now part B of what we're mandated to do tonight on the budget. Okay, David.
Yes, thank you. Many of you were part of the budget hearing. It went successfully, quickly, a couple of speakers. So you've all seen the budget priorities for fiscal year 2023, both capital and expense. Yes, hopefully capital. Good, thank you. Could you go down just a little bit? No. Mostly I want to see number 3. Ed Green, you had mentioned possibly giving up your spot in favor of environment and sanitation.
Yeah, that was for number 5.
Ed, is that true? Is it number 5?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Subway stations. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, all right, so you're interested in swapping, well, actually, I don't know, Bob Finuzzi, do you actually have a detailed capital item, or, because this is sort of new? Do you have language that you would like to insert on number 5?
David, I think what we're doing is swapping 5 and 6, isn't that? With Ed,
Yes.
thank you. I think that's what you're proposing. So just swap 5 and 6. That's all.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was not aware of that.
Okay.
Okay, does
Thanks,
anybody
Ed.
have any objections?
That's what you
to
meant,
that?
right? That's what I meant.
Okay, fine, no, that's fine, I just was not aware. Does anybody have any objection to that swap? Hearing no comments, I'll take it that there's unanimous consent for that. Therefore, I propose, are there any other changes that are requested by board members to these, our capital and expense budget priorities for fiscal year 2023? Okay.
I'm not seeing hands.
Right, hearing none, seeing none, I will assume that it is valid. Well, it's not quite moved, but as a report forwarding to the board, the list of capital budget priorities as so modified, and expense budget priorities, that we present them to OMB as our priorities for fiscal 2023. Are there any objections to presenting them as such?
I don't see any hands.
Hearing none, seeing none, I will deem that they are accepted by the board. And I thank you for your time, and we'll talk in the coming months about fiscal year 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Okay, economic development. Nick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome new committee members to the Economic Development Committee. I also want to thank Joy Campbell-Privatere for taking on the role as co-vice chair of the committee. We had a great meeting on September 23rd. Our small business owners report was given by Seth Kaplan, a proprietor from the Bronx Public. Mr. Kaplan's report was insightful and gave us a lot to think about and discuss. And I refer you to my minutes for more details on that discussion. We had a very, very informative presentation by the New York State Department of Financial Services about the pending BDD designation program in Back Portland Village and Kingsbridge Heights. We hope to have official word from DFF sometime in November on that program. We had an update of the financial literacy initiative at Manhattan College. We were forced to postpone the planned in-person event at Manhattan College, but we hope to reschedule in the spring. There will also be a presentation of the resources that have been put together thus far by Manhattan College at our October meeting. We had a great discussion on the transition to a permanent open restaurant program, along with some very compelling testimony from Mr. Kaplan about the implications for our small businesses. There will be an ongoing discussion, and we will continue that discussion at our subsequent meeting in October. Quick announcements for our small businesses. The PPP forgiveness is in full swing, and thank you to SBA and our local financial institutions for processing those forgiveness applications. Anyone who's had a PPP loan under $150,000, it is a simplified form, and it is essentially an automatic forgiveness. The New York State Small Business Grant Program has been expanded by Governor Hochul, and the eligibility has been expanded. It's a little easier to apply. In addition, there's a 1-800 number, which is really unique these days, where you actually get a person to talk to. So encourage our small businesses to apply for the New York State grant. And thanks again to our local state officials that worked hard to get that money procured and in place for our small businesses. Over 200 residents and businesses testified at the CPC hearing on the proposed text amendment that would eliminate the geographic restrictions for sidewalk cafes. This is in relation to the permanent outdoor restaurant, open restaurant program. There will be another public hearing on Thursday being conducted by the planning department at the Borough President's office. The committee will continue to engage with business owners, DCP, DOT, and anyone else who has an idea or opinion or input on the POR program. As I did in our September meeting, I invite members of the board and the community to join our discussion at economic development. I anticipate it will be ongoing until the program is finalized. Lastly, we'll be resuming our walkthroughs of merchant corridors through our district in collaboration with the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. We will be talking with merchants about the New York Small Business Network, the small business grant programs I mentioned earlier, among the other services and resources available to our small businesses through the extensive network of community partners with Community Board 8. Next meeting is October 28th, 7 p.m. on Zoom. The small business report will be presented by Edu Marmalejos from One Yoga for All. We will continue our open restaurant program discussion with Navarro Lopez from DOT, as well as local merchants and possibly members from the New York City Hospitality Alliance. And as mentioned, we will also have Professor Anabi and Professor Farley from Manhattan College on the financial literacy initiative resources for small business. And that's my report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's excellent. And we certainly want to reach out to the TNT committee on the open meetings discussion that's going on economic development. That's a great partnership for sharing all information. Thank you very much, Nick. Next is Sylvia, Education, Libraries, Cultural Affairs. Sylvia.
I was muted. I just want to make an observation, and I'm congratulating myself, breaking my arm, patting myself on the back. In terms of our new members of the secretary and also the Parks Committee chair, both are new to the board, basically. Rob has been on my committee for 3 years, and he has been an asset, and I'm sorry to lose him. He always followed through, and everything that was said before, I ditto all of that. And Ramdat was my lifesaver last year in terms of keeping me on Zoom and not giving me a heart attack every month that I had to have the meeting. And again, I have to replace him. I hope I can find someone else. And I guess I'm a breeding, and Nick was also on the education committee before he became economic development. So I have three members, new members, who have moved forward in leadership, and I'm really very pleased. I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but whatever I did have to do with it, I'm really thrilled. And I wish them all a great deal of luck. Our first meeting for the new season is October 26th. Because of the holidays, I haven't had a meeting yet. And we'll go on from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, Sylvia.
I keep losing them.
Well, but still, it works for us.
Graduating.
Yes. Bob Panuzzi, Environment and Sanitation.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to draw people's attention to our next meeting next Wednesday, October 20th. And the two major items we'll be discussing are the progress of composting in the district. And again, it's been a real emphasis and priority from the council member. And also, we are going to be taking a look at what the mayor's response to resiliency is so far. It's a 4-year report mandated by City Council. And that will be presented tomorrow, actually, at a 10 a.m. Zoom presentation from the group called Stormwater Infrastructure Matters. So I've sent that link to my committee members, so I hope we can do that, or at least you can watch or get the recording, even better, because we'll be reviewing that and discussing our response to the major Deegan Expressway flooding, which was just catastrophic, and we're not forgetting that. So you'll see that under old business, but we'll be coming back to that. Again, I want to thank Deb Travis for a conjoined meeting last time, and hope to see you on the 20th. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, Omar for Health, Hospitals, and Social Services.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I just want to say it's good to see you all tonight. There was no meeting in October due to the holidays, but our next meeting will be tomorrow night. Now, that meeting is going to be very, very important. About a couple of weeks ago, the board office received notification from the Department of Social Services that they will be building a homeless shelter located at 6661 Broadway that will house 130 men. This is part of the mayor's initiative, Turning the Tide on Homelessness in New York City. So far, the board office has received many emails in opposition to this shelter, and a petition was started online, and that petition has garnered over 500 signatures in opposition of this. So tomorrow night, the Department of Social Services, along with the service provider, which is the African American Planning Commission, will be coming to speak. And tomorrow night will also be a chance for the public and everyone to understand what is going to happen, and the public will be allowed to ask questions. So I do encourage everyone to turn out tomorrow night.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar. Moving on, housing. I did speak with Ted last night, and he is having some health issues. He's going to be fine, but he's not here tonight. But I do expect him to be putting out an agenda for an October meeting based on our conversation last night. So more on that as the time goes. Next is land use, and Marty is going to report. We have 2 resolutions to put up. Chuck is out of the country.
Yeah, you want to put them up, Kira? Or I'll just wing it.
No, I'm putting them up. They're just loading. So just give me 1 second.
Perfect.
All right. This one is, okay. This resolution, which the committee approved unanimously, is predicated on a request made by the homeowner on Iceland Avenue, 5051. And this went very quickly because we approved some months ago. He requested that there be a structure above his pool. At some point, he decided not to have the structure, but to have the pool open and some changes made around his property. We saw no big difference between this request and the previous request, other than the absence of this new building. And so it was easily passed. Those who don't know this site, it's right in back of Christ Church, right across from Middleton Center. And that's the first resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there any discussion or questions on this motion? Let me just double check here. I see Nick's hand is up. Nick, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, not just a question, just a
I mean,
quick comment. I believe.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I was present for the vote on this, and I voted in favor, and it's not recorded here, so you might want to check the record. I signed on late to the meeting, but I was present for this discussion.
Thank you, Nick. I will look at that and reflect it. Thank you.
Okay.
Kira,
Thank
also,
you.
if I may, sorry, can you correct my name? It's spelled Tepelus. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, Camelia. I think I have it correct on the other one and forgot to change this one. My apologies.
I don't see any other hands. If
Can we-
there's no further discussion, please raise your hand if you are opposed to the resolution. I'll just wait a minute. Please raise your hand if you're abstaining from this resolution. Okay, seeing no hands, it's deemed unanimously approved. All right, thank you.
All right, the second resolution, as it's coming up, is approval of the use on 230th Street and Broadway of that corner building, which the New York City Police Department wants to use for the Special Victims Squad, not to be confused with the TV program SVU. But the premise here is that it will serve the same function, Bronx unit. All police matters concerning special victims will go through this office. We basically had no problem with it last month. The only issue that we had was a major concern about whether or not there would be an abuse of parking by police vehicles on that very crowded and dangerous intersection. There is a parking lot in back of the building, which they intend to use for officers and or even victims to park their cars while they're in the building. But we were concerned again that between the exterior and 230th Street might find police vehicles all over the place. So we asked the police who represented this request to go back and get some guarantees, and they did. And there's a letter which I have not seen, but the community board office has, that the commanding officer of this unit has promised there will be no abuse of placards or police vehicles on the street. And that letter, I believe, indicates that there will be a disciplinary action if any police officers violate this I'll call it a covenant. So that's the second resolution.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on this resolution? Let me just.
David,
and then Georgia.
Yes, just a quick question. It was not clear during the meeting whether the commanding officer is in any sense, or this squad is in any sense under the command of our CEO, Captain Gervin, If you're still on the call, if you could just quickly comment whether it is or is not under your command in any sense. Captain?
David,
Captain Gerb,
he's
it's-
muted,
Yes.
but the answer is no. It's not under his command.
Okay.
Yeah, Laura, we were very clear. It was a completely separate unit. They operate.
Yes, they said
completely
that several
separate and
times, yes.
distinct from the 50th precinct.
Yes. And that they would abide by the restrictions that we put on them. And they, they sent a letter, then they sent an updated letter. So there was tremendous cooperation, we felt. Deb was on that call, I was on the call, Dan was on the call, DCAS and the police. Georgia, your hand is up and Dan's hand is up. Or Dan, just Georgia. Georgia, are you muted? I know she's using the phone, so. Georgia,
I'm sorry, I did.
you're
sorry.
on, we hear you.
What? Okay. I wondering if I could get a little bit more info on this special victims that would be coming here across the street, really?
Well, we're talking about individuals who are victims of family violence or who have sexual abuse or whatever. This is a specially victims squad, which again, in terms of content, is the same as SVU on TV. This is not, well, they'll be bringing in tons of people who are under arrest for incarceration, although I understand in the building, there may be a holding cell, pending whatever's taking place. But this is not the same as a precinct activity.
Basically, they're moving from the South Bronx where they had no privacy for the victims and to a better space in Community Board 8, which is what prompted this, it's called a EULA coming to Community Board 8, then it's going to the City Council. They're a very self-contained unit. We didn't expect any issues.
Anything else, Georgia?
So they say. So they say. I've seen many things happen, so they say. They say many things. But if my vote count at all, I would abstain against it.
That's definitely, you're right, definitely. Okay, I don't see any further hands. So there's no more questions or discussion. If you are opposed, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? If you are abstaining, please raise your hand. I see Georgia.
No, that was up from before, because I do oppose. That's it.
Oh, okay, so that was up from the first. Kira, do you have
Yeah.
that?
Just to be clear, Georgia, that's an opposition?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. Thank you.
I'll repeat, is there anyone abstaining? Okay, so it's deemed approved. Thank you. That's the last resolution for land use. Marty,
Yeah, but-
anything else to add?
Yeah, and the land use, I just want to bring you two things to the board's attention. There was an article in the local paper concerning an item that was brought before the Land Use Committee last week concerning College Place. Just a quick heads up, and there's no discussion. There is there's a homeowner whose property is on, in theory, two plots. Therefore, he has the theoretical right to build a house on the second plot. The problem is, he wants to build a house that would be for family. And because it's for family, he wants to use as much of the land as possible to make it good residence for them to live in, but he's violating the zoning law because you have to have, I think, 10 feet between the properties. And so what he's done is on the north side of the property, he has his 10 feet. And on the right side, which is right next to where his house is, he has 6 feet, he has 6 inches. And so that's obviously in violations, he wants a variance. And the big concern basically was that if this is for family, wonderful, but down the road, you may want to sell the house. And someone purchasing the house may have difficulty with a 6-inch border on the side of the house. And so the issue went back to them is need to come up with a covenant that will recognize that that forever there'll be an easement that the second house would be able to use, will walk across the property of the first house because 6 inches don't make it. And just a heads up, we may have a problem with our good friends at there is a property under construction or near construction, which is in SNED. So far, city planning doesn't seem to recognize our rights concerning SNED. So Chuck sent me this afternoon. I've not had a chance to study it, but that certainly will be an issue that he will bring up at the next land use meeting. That's it. Land use.
Okay, thank you so much, Marty. Now you can move right into LRE, Law, Rules, and Ethics.
Oh, I can hardly wait.
Laura,
Sorry. I have-
Myra Joyce's hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a hand. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a question. I don't understand why 6661 Broadway hasn't been addressed by the Land Use Committee. I went back like a year and a half to find anything about them. And
It's my impression, and others can speak better to this than I can. The notice of the intent to build this property is very recent. It came in, I think, after the last land use meeting. Right now, Omar is going to hold a public meeting. I want to call it hearing if you want, but a public meeting so people can get their voices in. And Chuck, when he comes back to the country, this will be on the agenda of land use. And it hasn't been overlooked from our part.
Great.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
going to involve Myra, public safety, land use. Yeah, it came in the very end of September and we would not have been able to give open meetings law appropriate notice for the October 4th land use. But I think it's very fast that we were able to get the Department of Social Services and the provider, the nonprofit, in very quick time for tomorrow's meeting with health, for Omar's meeting. But we will definitely be addressing this in multi-committees and hopefully in the next committee of land use. But that was
Thank you.
not possible to do earlier.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you. Steve, I see your hand is up as well.
Yes, just point of information, Marty, do you know the address of the property with the 6 inches between the existing structure and the proposed structure?
It's
I
318 College Road.
318 College Road. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So Marty, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah,
You're
so
still doing
LRE,
your report.
I just want to bring a number of items to the board's attention. The first is I sent out over the summer or beginning of September, what I call the primer, to help new members and experienced members to know what the terminology is, and if there are any questions, you have the ability to know what questions to ask. But one issue came up last board meeting, and I just want to clarify, and this will sound old to some people, and I apologize. But when we have a vote, there are 4 possibilities of how to vote. And there was an issue came up, let's say, last month. You can vote in the affirmative, you can vote in the negative, or you could abstain. Just know that when a vote takes place, it's required that there be A, a quorum present, and B, that there must be at least 50% in favor of something for the resolution to pass. If someone abstains, then in theory, they are voting no, because that vote counts, that vote prevents a positive vote from going forward. It may have impact, it may not, but that abstention counts toward the quorum. The 4th possibility is something we mistakenly over the years called abstention for cause. And we've been pointed out by the Conflict of Interest Board that abstention for cause is of no value and ought not be used, and so terminology does not exist. What exists in its place is present, ineligible to vote. That means for some reason you have a conflict of interest. And by virtue of having a conflict of interest, you cannot vote. And that would decrease the requirement for a quorum. Your presence means a quorum may be present, but it's not needed for the 50% required to pass the resolution. What is a conflict? I have no list for you, but if you own a piece of property that's being discussed, that's a conflict. If you work for an agency that's going to receive funding through that the community board will be voting on, that's a conflict. If you think you may have a conflict, you can ask me, but my input is not legal. It has no weight. It's just my advice. If you think you have a conflict, you're advised to contact the Conflict of Interest Board. They will respond by phone relatively quickly, we understand, and also provide you with written evidence. And it is also held in confidentiality. So when someone would vote, present, ineligible to vote, someone could ask why, and you have the right to say because, or you have the right to say rather not share. You could say, but you have to say I contacted the Conflict of Interest, and they say I shouldn't vote. So Chuck Merdler on many occasions have said, I represent the sanitation union, and therefore I can't vote on this. That's present, ineligible to vote.
Thank you, Marty.
I just have 2 more things and I'm done. Eric Dinowitz covered a lot of it in theory, but each month I do a legislative spreadsheet that I share with the committee. And I will share, occasionally I share it with the chair people so they know exactly what the city council is up to, what they're working on. And so from the standpoint of the various committees, you know whether you want to support or at least be aware something is going on. The OML has been brought to our attention and concern that both residents and members of the board itself are not really sure what the actual requirements of the open meetings law is. And I don't want to put myself out as an expert, but I do want to make sure that we become expert. And so at our next meeting on November 8th, Monday night, the meeting is going to be focused entirely, almost entirely, on the open meetings law. The members have received copies of the law to read, and we will discuss it to find out whether or not there are rules or of some kind that we should have as standardized on what we've done or not done. For example, when do community members have the right to speak? How often, whatever. We've covered this with board meeting, generally the full board meeting, where there's a speakers list and there's a time limit. That doesn't work necessarily with the committees, but we want to make sure we have a standardized approach. So community members who come to a meeting aren't surprised. I can speak here, but I can't speak there. And last but not least, the issue came up that we did tonight, filling midterm vacancies We have done it the way we've always done it. We did it tonight the way we've always done it. And that may or may not be appropriate. It is the belief that we should have a schedule, the same as we have for the nominating committee, so that people will know from this date to this date, you can submit your name for nomination. And after this date, you can always submit it from the floor, but at least when we put out the word, X person has put forward their name, they'd like to be considered for X committee, that the fear was that by doing it the way we're doing it now, or not having a standard that we should set up, that we might chill people who might consider running, but saying, oh, well, that person applied for it, therefore I can't, or I won't. So I invite anyone to come to the next meeting of the LRE. We will be discussing this in greater detail. I
Thank you. Now, thank you very much. I now see 3 hands. I don't know if they were from before. I see Myra and Bob and Ed Green. Myra, is that from before?
Yeah, that was from before. Sorry.
Okay. Bob Bender?
Yeah, Marty, in the information you sent out and again tonight, you said that for something to pass in a committee, whether it's a resolution or anything else, you have to have at least 50%. That's not quite right. You have to have 50% plus 1 for something to pass.
At least 50%, I said.
Well, again, 50% is not good enough. It's 50% plus. You know, we have to be clear about that. I know you know this, Marty. I just think the terminology is confusing people or can confuse people.
Example I have given before, if there are 10 people at a meeting making up the quorum, and there are 5 in favor and 5 against, it does not pass.
That's right.
If there's 5 in favor and 4 against and 1 abstention, it does not pass. If there are 5 in favor and 4 against and 1 present, ineligible to vote, it does pass.
Thank you for the clarification, Marty.
Ed, your hand is up.
Yeah, hey, Marty, I just wanted to get some clarification. You mentioned earlier about the language abstention for cause being essentially done away with now. So just for clarification purposes, what was the rationale for using that language before, and why the sudden change of basically making it extinct at this point?
Exactly as I said, COIB, we met with them last year on certain other issues. I raised this and they said abstention for cause is not acceptable. The correct language is present, ineligible to vote. The same concept. I want to abstain, not because I'm for or against it, but I have a vested interest in it. And therefore, if I vote, my salary is connected to this because I work for the agency that's being discussed. You should not be voting. And so you, instead of saying for cause, you're going to say ineligible to vote.
They're basically just saying it should have never been used in the first place. There really was no rationale to have it to begin with.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What I found interesting when we asked for clarification from the Bronx Borough President's office, we got a stare which said, "What is that? You never heard of it." When I discussed with the Conflict of Interest Board, they had heard of it, and that's how they corrected us.
But we all just went along with it the whole time. Fine.
Camelia, your hand is up next.
Oh, yeah, just to add one thing for the board consideration, it was also, I brought it up also to the Ethics, Laws and Rules Committee, but Marty didn't mention it, so just wanted to point it out. On the issue of membership of special committees, of which we have 2, the Greenway Special Committee and the Special Committee on Racial Equity, I referred for advice the matter of how can new board members or existing board members that are not new join these committee boards. I know that by bylaws, the chair has the prerogative of appointing members when a special committee is formed for the first time. such as we have last year, the Special Committee on Racial Equity. However, existing special committees such as the Greenway, the membership is passed by resolution at the end of each year for the next year. But for example, didn't have actually a written resolution in June, like 4.
Camelia, I'm having trouble hearing you. You're going in and out.
Yeah, right.
Let me answer the question.
But
If I can, Camelia, you're right.
Yes,
It's in my minutes. When my minutes come out, you'll see that the request that you made is in the minutes, but I have no report to offer now. So I didn't
Yeah,
offer.
this will be discussed. It will.
Oh,
it will
I see.
definitely be
Thank you so
discussed.
much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will look forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's very important we know how you feel. I don't see any other hands, so we're going to move on to Bob Bender, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, in the absence of a committee chair, I did chair the most recent meeting of the Parks Committee. Very briefly, just wanted to mention a couple of things. There was a survey that was sent around by a Yonkers-based group, Groundworks Hudson Valley, about the Northwest Forest in Van Cortlandt Park. They got a lot of attention because it had to do with the use of that part of the park, and it came out of a group in Yonkers. But they came in, they presented to the committee, and the bottom line there is that nothing can be done in Van Cortlandt Park without the approval of the Department of Parks and Recreation. And furthermore, the Northwest Forest in Van Cortlandt Park is a forever wild area. So nobody is going to come in and pave part of it or put up lights or do things that that contradict the forever wild status. And again, nobody can do anything without the approval of the Parks Department. So we had a good discussion on that subject, and I think there's greater clarification about the situation now. The other thing I wanted to mention very briefly, which David Gilman alluded to earlier, is that this past Saturday, there was a very large cross-country meet in the park. And I was down there for about 45 minutes. I saw Mr. Gilman, who was directing traffic with Cradle On. And I should say that it really was a model of how this sort of thing ought to be done. The 5-0 was there, the PEP officers were there, and the Alliance had a number of volunteers out there. And compared to what we endured in that area 3 and 4 years ago, it was beautiful. You know, nobody was double parking. If anybody double parked, the police were there in a second, or the PEP officers. The whole thing went very smoothly, and it's really a model for how we can handle these large cross-country meets in the park and still keep the traffic moving on Broadway. A final thing I want to do is congratulate Ram Dat Singh on becoming chair of the Parks and Recreation Committee. There is already a meeting scheduled for the 4th Wednesday of October, which is October 27th. Ram Dat has his work cut out for him.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Ram Dat, for stepping up. Okay, so next is Ed, Public Safety at Green.
Madam Chair, there's a hand up.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Bob Chakowski.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to say, I wanted to echo what David and Bob just said. I went out and volunteered all Saturday from like 10 to 3 p.m. and it was beautiful. I mean, it was really such a coordinated effort, and Stephanie Ehrlich was really moving all over the park, bringing people pizza and power bars and water. And it was really just wonderfully done, and such an improvement over 3-4 years ago. So again, just a great day.
Well done. Well done. Okay, so Ed, Public Safety.
Hey, hello, everybody. Okay, so due to the holiday scheduling, our last meeting was held before September's full board meeting. So our committee has no resolutions, and I just really wanted to welcome our two new members, Christopher Calhoun and Stephen Vasquez, to the Public Safety Committee. Very happy to have both you guys. And I'd also wanted to thank committee member Robert Kaplan for signing up for the committee, because I never got the opportunity to thank him. And our next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, October 19th at 7 p.m. And over the course of the month, a few issues have come to my attention. Shortage of the school safety agents is one. One was relocated at PS 24. That's something we're going to be addressing during the police report, along with the 311 calls and some of the stuff we've heard tonight about the noise complaints, and also a declaration of disaster emergency at Rikers Island by our newly appointed governor, Kathy Hochul. So that's something we want to discuss with Captain Gervin and the 50th as to what potential effects that could have on our community. So that's about it. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. We'll move on to traffic and transportation. Deb, and we have two resolutions that we'll be putting up.
Thank you, Laura, and good evening. Our last TNT committee met on October 5th. Due to a scheduling conflict, we met a little bit earlier in the month, which was actually worked out really well because we have two time-sensitive, urgent resolutions for you to consider this evening. I had two bits of news. One, I just wanted to make sure that the committee is, or that the board is aware that DOT is having a public hearing on moped share rules to establish a permitting system. The public hearing will be on Thursday, October 28th at 2 p.m. And the DOT will also be having a public hearing on permanent car share rules. That hearing will be on Monday, November 8th at 2 p.m. and the public is welcomed to attend. Additional information can be found online, or you can contact the board office to get the link to join. So the first resolution is the Cape Park. You want to do Cape Park Palisade first? I can do Cape Park Palisade first. So the first resolution is regarding the Cape Park Palisade intersection. Let's see here. So, so I just want to thank, could you just scroll up a little bit there, Kira? I don't know who's driving this. Kira, are you driving this?
Yes.
Okay, could you?
Is that good?
No, I mean the other way to the beginning where, thank you. So I want to thank Mary for coming out to the October 5th meeting and for speaking at the board meeting tonight. The resolution goes, whereas in October 2019, a pedestrian curb extension was installed by DOT at the intersection of Palisade Avenue and Capoc Street. Whereas the extended curbing inadequately directs water runoff to existing catch basins and no new catch basins were installed as part of this project. Whereas the committee has heard testimony from the community calling for the removal of the curb extension, the restoration of the previous street design, and the integration of green infrastructure to protect from climate change. Whereas during Tropical Storm Elsa on July 8th, and Tropical Depression Ida on September 1st of 2021, 2727 Palisade Avenue experienced severe flooding for the first time since its construction due to inadequate storm water management in the design of this intersection. Whereas the flawed design fails to adequately address stormwater, therefore be it resolved, the Traffic and Transportation Committee strongly urges DOT to remove the curb extension and restore the street to its previous design while maintaining pedestrian safety, reducing impervious surface, integrating green infrastructure, rebuilding the curb on the west side of Palisade Avenue, and incorporating new stormwater catch basins as needed, and to bring a plan back to this committee. A lot of discussion went into this resolution, and I really want to thank the committee for all the hard work they did. I think we came up with a very good consensus resolution.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on the resolution?
Yes,
I
yes.
see George's hand is up.
And Karen
Yes.
would like to speak.
Okay. Georgia, you go first.
Okay. Yes, I wasn't in here for the resolution, so that's why I'm raising my hand tonight, because I agree with removing curb extension and restore the street to previous design, what you just read, last paragraph.
Thank you, Georgia.
Deborah.
That's the beauty of it. You were absent, you couldn't make it in committee, but everybody gets to vote tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you
David?
for sending me the info.
You're welcome. After Georgia and before David, did I say another name? Hand was up?
Yes.
Karen.
Sorry.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Karen.
This is not my neighborhood, but I'm very concerned about curb cuts. I know we need the curb higher to deflect the water. We have that in my neighborhood. But is there an accommodation for those of us who need curb cuts? Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, Karen, can you repeat the question?
Right. Is there an accommodation for those of us who need curb cuts?
Are
Can
you
you hear me?
referring, hey Karen, are you referring to the pedestrian curb cuts?
Crosswalks, yes.
Yeah, there's already existing pedestrian crosswalks there. The desire is to have the curb is actually very wide and narrows the intersection. The desire is to reduce the amount of cement and the curb while still kind of having some flexible delineators or something to still protect pedestrians, but also direct the any stormwater away from 2727 Palisade. So the curb cuts would still remain. I mean, certainly there will be curb cuts for the crosswalk.
Thank you, Deborah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Very good. David.
Yes, thank you. I take exception with the issue of what was presented, but in particular, Deb, you shared with the committee yesterday changes an email that was sent to you by one of the neighbors last week immediately after the meeting, and it comports with the letter that was written by their co-op board. In both cases, kindly share with the board the McCormick letter that you shared with the committee.
David, I shared a letter that I received from a member of the building who was concerned about the loss of the curb cuts, but that they did feel good about the resolution because it did protect pedestrian safety. And so I shared it with the committee because I thought it was a good example of how we had found good middle ground with the resolution. So yeah, but this person lives in 2727 Palisade, and I thought that was really nice and helpful. And it was a very thoughtful letter. It was very well written.
I agree, though he didn't talk about the loss of the curb cuts. He talked about the removal of the curb extensions, which is, and that's really my point.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. That's what I meant was yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Both the co-op board and this individual, and I agree, don't want to see the removal of the curb extensions, but rather the greening of the area and addressing flooding issues with better storm drains, etc. So therefore, I would like to suggest, if I may, a friendly resolution. A friendly amendment to what you have here. In the third paragraph, where it says, whereas the committee has heard testimony from the community calling for the removal of the curb extension. What in fact happened was from the community calling for and against the removal of the curb extension. And also in the therefore be it resolved, in the third line, strongly urge DOT to preserve pedestrian safety while reducing impervious surfaces integrating green infrastructure, rebuilding the curb on the west side of Palisade Avenue, et cetera. So I think that would be a fair representation of what all parties were looking for. There were strong opinions about removing the curb extensions, but there were also strong opinions about keeping them. And so I think that this resolution coming out of the committee should recognize that majority opinion, which was really focused on pedestrian safety, improving the impervious issues, and integrating green infrastructure.
So David, are you asking me if I accept your friendly amendment?
Yes.
I do not. And the reason I don't is that that I think overwhelmingly the community, when we heard them, were not calling for the preservation of these curb extensions. And so in that overwhelmingly the people that we heard from the community were asking to have the curb extensions reduced or eliminated because they felt as though the change in the curbing is what has led to the flooding, that there hadn't been a history of the flooding, which is why we included it in the whereas. The letter that I shared it primarily because it was literally the only letter that I received in favor of the curb cuts. And I thought that it was well stated, but it was literally the only letter that I received. And so I don't think that, given that, we should say that both opinions were equally represented in our discussions in the meeting in September, or in any of the many emails that we received, either I received directly or that the board office received regarding this matter.
Okay.
So I can't accept the amendment and be fair to
That's
the-
fine. That's
the
fine. I
discussion.
just would say then, given that it is my firm belief that job one of government, and by extension us as community board members, is public safety. And I think that the DOT design addressed primarily public safety, and there are certainly flaws in their design that should be improved in terms of greenery and resiliency and proper diversion of water flow. I encourage Community Board 8 to vote against this resolution.
Dan, your hand, Dan, your hand is up next.
Hi, Laura, thank you. So I just want to address a few things there. The traffic statistics at this intersection, to address the safety and you're using the terms public safety, which is kind of a broad topic, but the pedestrian safety at this intersection is what DOT, that was their stated purpose for doing this. And I think when DOT actually went forward and did it, and we didn't have a rendering before they went and did this construction, they showed us pictures of other places. And they said, this is the concept of what we're going to be doing. And it's to address pedestrian safety. It was way beyond the scope of what anybody ever imagined when they saw this concrete going in. And when the concrete started going in, I think everybody, and I know the elected officials like Assemblyman Jeff Dinowitz was screaming at DOT to stop what they were doing, because everyone saw like how bad this was. Now, pedestrian safety can be addressed in a number of different ways without putting in concrete there. They could put in delineators. They could put in the painted crosswalks or the painted areas like they do in other areas, especially high traffic areas. Up here on Sedgwick Avenue by Goulden, what they did was delineators and paint. And that is a much more dangerous intersection than Capoc and Palisade, which has very little traffic on it. And I believe it was one accident in the 10 years previous to it. This was a mistake, plain and simple. And right now, I do support the committee coming in and saying to restore it to its previous configuration. I believe that's what the folks from the area want. While I probably would have went a little stronger with the resolution, I do support this resolution, and I hope the committee members do vote for it. I'm sure I'm missing a lot there, but thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Rosemary.
Just as Deb, if you look at the resolution, it says curb extension, just a minor point. It really is extensions. I think it should be plural. Am I right? Because the globs of concrete went on both the north side and the south side of KPOC. So just, I think it's, so there's no confusion, it's plural, it's extensions, it's both of them.
Which whereas, or which
No,
paragraph?
I think it isn't in the, it's not on the screen.
It's in the
I don't
therefore be it
have it.
resolved? Okay.
Yeah,
Can we put it back up
I
on the
see,
screen?
it's on the first sentence. Therefore, be it resolved, the Traffic and Transportation Committee strongly urges DOT to remove the curb extensions plural.
Plural, okay, well, no, what
thank
I
you.
saw up on this, okay, good.
Good catch.
And needless to say, it was a discussion. I think some of the community people wanted to have more of an ability to speak, but the conclusion here is very good. And it's my hope now that this doesn't just say that it gets passed by the board, and it doesn't just say a resolution, that we act on it and put all of our efforts behind this resolution if it passes, and I hope it does. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Rosemary. Seeing no other hands and having had this discussion, I think we're ready to bring this motion. Yes. Please raise your hand if you are opposed to the resolution.
Yes.
Raise your hand if you're opposed.
Opposed.
Okay, I see Camelia, Kelly, David.
And Karen, she's
Oh, I
not
didn't see
raising her
that.
hand, but she's speaking.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so we see 4 opposed. Is there anyone abstaining on the resolution? Camelia, is that your hand up from before?
I'm trying to lower it.
Okay, so you were under abstain. I mean, you were under opposed.
No, I was, yes, correct.
Yes, yeah, sorry, yes. And Sergio, your hand is up for abstaining.
Yes.
Okay, so everyone else approves the resolution and it passes. So thank you all. Thank you to everyone for working so hard. Our next committee is youth. Julia.
Oh, wait, Laura, we have KPOC and Johnson, the next resolution.
Oh my God. Can you tell us bedtime for me? Okay. I'm so sorry. Absolutely. We have another resolution.
We have one more resolution.
Yes.
So the, Kira, you gonna put that one up?
Yes, 1 second.
So this resolution is regarding the intersection of KPOC Street and Johnson Avenue where Ruth Mullen was struck. And I will read it as soon as.
Sorry, it's. Okay. Sure, okay.
All right, great. So whereas on September 7th at 8:30 p.m., local resident Ruth Mullen was tragically struck and killed by an MTA express bus en route down KPOC Street and making the left turn onto Johnson Avenue. Whereas Johnson Avenue and KPOC Street is a 3-way stop-controlled intersection with visibility limitations due to multiple slopes. Whereas this route is heavily used bus route serving the BXM1, BXM2, BXM18, the BX10, the BX20, and the Hudson Rail Link. Whereas we have heard from community members stating that vehicles routinely fail to stop at the stop signs and that a traffic signal at this intersection would be more effective. Therefore, be it resolved that the Traffic and Transportation Committee of Community Board 8 supports the DOT proposal to study the need for a traffic signal and improved lighting at this intersection. And this one passed unanimously in the committee.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Are there any questions or discussion? Let me go to on this resolution. I'm not seeing any hands up.
I'm not seeing any hands either, Laura.
Okay, so having no discussion, please raise your hand if you are opposed to this resolution. I'm not seeing any hands. Please raise your hand if you're abstaining. Any abstentions? No. It is deemed then unanimously approved.
Right, wonderful. Then I
Okay.
just have two last bits, which is
Sure.
I have had discussions with DOT. I was over the summer, one of the things that I did was to follow up on previous resolutions that had been approved and to make sure that they were logged and to just get the updates on them. One of them I had was regarding the April resolution where the board passed for flexible delineators on Independence Avenue. After discussions with DOT, I received additional information regarding the process for that, and I'm going to be bringing it back to a public discussion at the next Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. So please join me there to have a discussion on rescinding that existing April resolution. We will also be finalizing our resolution for safety improvements on Sedgwick Avenue, so it should be a good discussion there too. And that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deb. Next is Julia for Youth Committee.
Good evening. No meeting in September. We're meeting on Monday. Come hang out with us. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. Now, is there a report from the Special Committee on Hudson River Greenway this month?
No report this month.
Thank you. Any report from the Special Committee on Racial Equity? Anybody have any report? Okay. Any report on Special Committee on Veteran Services? Sergio?
We had a meeting that Madam Chair attended with the City Council Chairman on the Veterans Committee, Eric Dinowitz.
Sergio, you're in and out a little bit on the at least as I'm hearing it.
Okay, we had a meeting with our
Better.
the chairman of the City Council Veterans Committee. Madam Laura Spalter, the Madam Chair, attended. It was very fruitful. We have some things coming up. Just an announcement, there is going to be a New York State Veterans Cemetery, not in the New York City area, but that is all. Our next meeting will be in November, date to be determined. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We'll turn to discussion. Any discussion of Executive Committee meeting minutes of October 6, 2021? I don't see any hands. Approval of the corrected board meeting minutes of September 14th. Okay. Is there any comments? The minutes were distributed, the corrected minutes were distributed. Seeing no discussion, is there anyone opposed to approving the minutes? Is there anyone abstaining? So the minutes as corrected and amended are approved unanimously. Is there any miscellaneous business? Last but not least. Not seeing any hands. I want to thank everyone for coming. This was early. We started at 6:30. We got a lot of board business done, and it's 9:20. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.